Christmas has always been my favorite time of year. I married young and had two beautiful daughters, but my marriage was far from perfect. We were young and in love. I was starting community college and Denise was starting her senior year when we decided to tie the knot. What made a huge difference was that her family was so willing to accept me, the family I never had, and made me feel like a real member of their family. I can admit it now. I probably loved being part of the family as much as I loved Denise. Our breakup was inevitable. Two teenagers who knew nothing about life thought that their infatuation with each other would make everything else work. I wasn't a star, a super jock, a Rhodes Scholar International Scholarship to study at Oxford University with a 12-inch 35 cm member. I was a regular student, got A's and B's, played on the soccer team to get my diploma, and lost my virginity at 18 to the girl I eventually married. When times get tough, we don't know how to deal with it, and we resent each other. Her family often stepped in and helped when they could, but time after time, the great sex wasn't enough to make up for the difference in our wants, needs, and aspirations. In the end, we gave up. Sometimes I think it's a miracle that we lasted 5 years. Our dedication to our children allowed us to finally see our own problems behind us and to forge a surprisingly amicable truce that centered our girls. Even though Denise and I couldn't live together, it turned out that we got along much better when we were divorced. We shared our daughter's time, lived just one neighborhood away from each other, and worked as a team to ensure our personal differences affected our girls as little as possible. I initially rented an apartment downtown, but ended up buying one of the smaller houses in the same school district, just to make it easier. Most of the time, it was much more than I needed, but when the girls stayed with me, I felt at home, and we lived just a couple of miles apart. The area was nice, mostly young families in old small houses. Most people were welcoming, took care of their property, and over the years I knew many by name and exchanged greetings at the grocery store or while shopping. I started living in the suburbs. This was our fourth Christmas since the divorce. Denise lived with Eric, who I wanted to despise, but he was a decent guy with a great job and lousy taste in sports teams. He took care of my girls without trying to take my place. It took a while, but we developed a friendship, which wasn't a bad thing at all. My child support was just over $1,500, and the children were insured through my clinic. Even though we weren't married long enough to warrant child support, I paid another $500 a month just to make the kids' lives better. And to me, that was the only thing that mattered. Spending wasn't easy at first, but when I had nothing to focus on other than work, my numbers skyrocketed. 2 promotions in 3 years made the financial aspect much less of an issue, but increased travel made being available to girls less assured. Denise treated this with understanding and met me halfway. In return, I covered part of the girls' expenses, including music and piano lessons. Christmas was special. We celebrated Christmas with our family. I arrived early, we had a big family breakfast, and opened all the gifts together. I tried really hard to make sure the girls got their favorite things. At 6 and 8, they were still young enough to have simple wishes, and the magic of Christmas was as real as anything else. After lunch, relatives arrived with gifts, and we had a good old Christmas dinner with all the necessary treats. It felt good to be part of something. I had a Christmas jam at work, and Denise didn't, so we agreed that from Christmas until New Year they would live with me, and any time she could be free, we would usually work out something so that she could be with the children. It was decided that I would not leave the city, at least not for more than a day. Summers were wonderful when I was able to spend 2 weeks with them, and we usually spent them at the beach. Christmas was still different. Christmas was magical. I was always given a girl's wish list, but I would still start shopping at the end of November to buy the season's essentials. And I didn't skimp. I bought them all so as not to miss a single one. Stores, online auctions, Craigslist electronic classified site, I used any means to get the hottest gifts. The first 2 years I went to hell from Denise for buying everything on the list, leaving them nothing. Now I received a separate list of things that I was not allowed to buy. So I just finished wrapping my 44th gift in glitter paper with Barbie for Brianna and in paper with Hannah Montana for Alora. The 5th of December is the earliest date I have completed the bulk of my shopping. Of course, I would have grabbed a few more things, including something for Denise and Eric, but I already took care of my girls. The gifts were neatly laid out in my living room, where they will be on display until Christmas, when I bring them to Denise in celebration. The call came from Denise's mother, Sharon. It took me 11 minutes to get to the hospital, but I was still late. Denise and Brianna died along the way. Eric passed away just 10 minutes before I arrived. But Alora, my perfect little Alora, was fighting for her life while in critical condition. She was always a fighter and never backed down from any challenge. She could handle this, I just knew it. It was an accident. A car swerved out of the way to let a coyote pass. The 18-wheeler behind him did his best to avoid the car in front of him, but ended up fishtailing and hitting a commuter bus in the adjacent lane. This car crossed the median and crashed head-on into my ex-wife's family van. 6 have already died, and 1 little girl is still fighting for her life. Sharon and I did not leave the baby, and when the doctors came out 6 hours later and announced that the worst was over and she was in stable condition, we fell into each other's arms and cried like children. We never left her side. One of us was constantly present, and Sharon called me when my baby woke up and spoke. For 3 long days, we watched her slowly recover in the hospital. The worst bruises, cuts, and bruises blossomed on the 2nd day and were just beginning to disappear. I am not a religious person by nature, but I knelt beside her bed, praying to God to take care of her and thanking Him for helping her survive this terrible disaster. On December 7th at 16:18 she died. Without warning, without reason, she was there, and then she was gone. Doctors suspected a blood clot. I suspected incompetence. I finally understood how a person can become so degraded that life can seem meaningless. I returned home and shut myself off from the whole world. After a while, I picked up the phone. Damn, let's be honest. I ripped the damn wires out of the wall so I wouldn't have to listen to another bleeding heart tell me that, sorry for my loss. It was easier with a mobile phone. I just turned it off. Several people from work came and assured me that I could take as much time as I needed. They brought me food and news and left as soon as they felt they had spent the minimum amount of time required by the social situation. Denise's family took charge of the funeral arrangements. They tried to call and even came to see me to find out about my participation. I gave them a check for $10,000 to take care of the girls, almost wiping out their savings. What should I spend it on now? I couldn't bring myself to go to the cemetery, but I took a shower and put on my funeral suit. It was a gloomy day, gray skies, 20 mph winds threatening to blow the top off the outdoor tent. The ground was wet from the rain the night before. Just perfect. Thank you, God. Pissing on a guy when he's passed out. Well, pissing on you too. I shook the required hands and kissed the offered cheeks until I simply couldn't take it anymore. All these fake people. False emotions. Tell me how sorry they are and then go home to their perfect families and eat meatloaf. Fuck them. Fuck everyone. 14 days. 2 weeks in this dark house. I didn't turn on the light. No TV. I didn't wash or shave. I sat in a chair or lay in bed and rolled around. After the first few days, I had a few visitors, but I rarely let them in, and soon they had the decency to stay away. Only Katie from next door kept me from falling into complete oblivion. Every day, at least 3 times a day, she checked on me. I wouldn't let her in the house, but she had a key to the back door in case of emergencies, and she wasn't afraid to use it. She opened the windows wide and persuaded me to get out of bed and at least sit in the living room. She brought food, which she placed in front of me, and refused to leave until I at least tried it. I insisted that the key be returned to me, and she readily gave it to me, and she appeared again the next morning. She made copies. Bad bitch. She made me eat her breakfast again. And she spoke. God, how can this woman talk? I got tired of just listening. All the neighborhood gossip, town gossip, political gossip, school gossip, she was online and knew everything. Who is doing what? Gossiped about people who still had Thanksgiving decorations or Christmas lights hanging in their yard. church incidents, and neighborly squabbles she sat, drank tea or bourbon and cola if the sun had already set and brought me up to date. I did not care. 2 weeks have passed since the accident. I have lost over 10 pounds 5 kg, and I really wanted to just crawl into a hole and die. But Katie wouldn't let me do that. She made it her personal mission to encourage me, to make me respond, to come back to life. And then one day, she slapped my hands. She came up to me and hit me in the face. Strongly. Damn it, Alex. Get it out of your head. Life is hard. And it is unfair, but no matter how bad it is for you, there will always be someone who has it even worse. Often in your own backyard, if you have the eyes to see it. What do you know about this? I snapped angrily. I noticed that your children are alive. I remembered that my mother died when I was 6 and my father left when I was 13, leaving Mike to raise me and my sister. He was 17 years old, but he was courageous and did the job as best he could. Here's what I know. Life is hard. Life is hard. Life's a bitch, and then you die. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. When God closes a door, he opens a window. If I hear one more damn cliché, I swear I'll kill someone, I growled. Alex, you've had a hard time. You had 2 perfect little girls, and now they're gone. Your past is destroyed. Your little piece of immortality is lost. And no matter how bad it is for you, I want to remind you that others have it worse, but they continue to live. You should too, Katie said, kneeling down next to me and taking my hands. This woman barely knew me. A mother of 3 middle-aged children with her now grown children and a workaholic husband. Her life is her home, which she keeps clean and decorates for every holiday and season. Now it looks like I've become her new project. Why should I be so important to her? Can't she see that I don't need her help? Of course, starving Ethiopians, children dying of AIDS in Nigeria, martyrdom of Tibetan monks, the world is cruel. Boo-hoo. You don't have to look as far as Ethiopia or Tibet. There are people right here, right on your block, who are really struggling. Open your eyes. If you don't like injustice, do something about it. Even the odds a little. Make a difference. Come back to life. Something she said must have gnawed its way into my subconscious. I spent my usual 14 hours or so in bed, but when I woke up, I thought about her constant comments about how someone in my own backyard had it worse. I mentally went through all the residents of my block, and no one had it so bad. Of course, Neil, who lives 3 doors down, had lost his job, but his wife was still working, and he was looking. The Harrises had a boy on the corner in Iraq, but as far as I could tell, he was fine, and they had 3 other children at home. The Martins across the corner were constantly quarreling, and once the police were even called to them, but they were still together. What did Katie mean? I expanded the search radius to include the neighborhoods surrounding us. And then it dawned on me. Across the alley, 2 houses after Katie's house. 6 months ago, Barry Morrison drove into an empty field behind the local high school and shot himself. I knew little about this family, I only knew that it existed. When Katie arrived, I had already washed off the top 2 layers of dirt and sweat and was drinking a Coke in the living room. Good morning, Alex. It's a beautiful day outside. Why don't we go out on the porch? Morrison's. Tell me about them. She placed the mug of tea in the microwave, warming it up, then walked out the front door and sat down in one of the rocking chairs near the entrance. Irritated, I followed her and sat down in the chair next to her. Morrison's. Sandy and her daughter Erica. You rarely see her. She works 2 jobs, trying to keep the house over their heads. They are still fighting with the insurance company over payments. Due to suicide, the insurance company does not want to pay for 2 years. He had insurance for years, but changed his terms about 2 years ago. She tried to sell the house, but it is in bad condition and no one is buying. How's the baby? Erica is not doing so well. She goes to a psychologist twice a week and barely talks. The school is talking about keeping her in school, Katie explained. There was sadness in her voice. Do we know anything else about why he did it? Nothing criminal, he wasn't fired, no embezzlement, it's unclear why. Apparently, he has been depressed for a long time, but as far as I know, there is nothing underlying the situation. Leaving like this is a harsh thing to do for a family, I told her, finding the whole idea difficult to comprehend. To put it mildly, the poor woman is exhausted to the limit. And what does all this mean for me? I asked. None. It doesn't matter to anyone. They are on their own, alone. Relatives don't help. As far as I know, no. If they exist, we rarely see them, that's for sure. Katie, how the hell do you know all this? I asked. People just like to talk to me. I'm a very good listener, she smiled broadly at me. We sat in silence, enjoying the fresh air and finishing our drinks. You're a good neighbor too, Katie. Thank you, I said softly. That's what neighbors are for, she said, reaching out and patting my arm. That's what neighbors are for. Katie brought me dinner again, and I realized I was starving. When I finished the whole plate, she began to shine. Let's go for a walk, Alex. It wouldn't hurt to stretch your legs. It became cool, and we bundled up a little. She took the lead, and we walked a block and turned down the block. We headed back up the next block, and she told me all the history and habits of the people of each place we passed. She may have been a good listener, but I had to wonder how she could even remain silent for long enough to hear anything. Everything became clear when we approached Sandy Morrison's house. Signboard, "For sale," made itself felt immediately. The unkempt yard and overgrown bushes indicated months of neglect. This could not help with the sale. The paint on the doors was faded, and there were no Christmas lights or decorations. I figured the realtor wasn't earning his commission by letting the house look like this. Through the window, I saw a tabletop Christmas tree about 2 feet tall, 60 cm, illuminated with white light. Strangely, Katie fell silent before we even got to the house, and didn't speak again until the end of the block. It's sad, that's all she said. We took a circuitous route back to my house, and our conversation again turned to safe topics about the weather, social problems, and the like, studiously avoiding discussion of the Morrisons. After the walk, I felt cool and invited Katie for a cup of Irish coffee if she wished. We drank coffee in front of my gas fireplace, warming our old bones. Damn my neighbor and her good intentions. Not only did she make me think about something other than my own suffering and the unfairness of it all, but she also made me think about those poor girls behind me and what they must be going through. Damn it, it wasn't fair. I guess I was still not ready for pleasant company. Angry at the world, I threw the mug at the wall, breaking it, and leaned back in my chair, resting my head in my hands, trying my best to hold back my tears. Big boys don't cry. Katie stood up and ran her fingers through my hair before walking out the back door, kindly leaving me alone to wallow in my misery a little longer. December 22, just 3 days until Christmas. When Katie arrived that morning, I was already up and dressed. I had my work clothes on, coffee and bagels were ready. You got up early, she remarked, pouring herself some coffee. It's almost 10, I reminded her. Not too early. She laughed. I think lately everything you do before noon is too early. Any plans? I nodded. I thought I'd go to the Morrisons and see what we could do with the outside of the house. Clean up a little, make it a little more presentable if they actually plan to sell it. That's very neighborly of you. I'll have something to do. I need to get out of this damn house. After coffee, she walked with me through the alley, loading a wheelbarrow with all my yard work supplies. The grass was withered but long, and the bushes were out of control. I didn't notice when Katie left, but she returned a few hours later with sandwiches for lunch and insisted I take a break. I finished trimming the bushes and mowed the lawn, bagging up the debris. I was just finishing the edging when it appeared. I took a break and listened to her chatter about neighborhood affairs and how it was a shame that no one had offered to do as much as I had done in the past few months. Perhaps we, victims of fate, need to stick together. He already looks 100% better. If you want to work in the backyard, I have a gate key. I thought so. What does it mean? She asked. It just doesn't surprise me. Surely you helped when you could. She sighed. Not too much. She's damn proud. Doesn't want help from anyone. I shook my head. And you're telling me now? She'll probably call the police on me. So what if he calls? You know you're doing the right thing. If necessary, I will post bail for you. I let her unlock the back gate and saw that I had a lot of work to do. The backyard was even worse than the front. The fence was also in need of repair. Some boards were broken and loose, and one section was completely askew. Luckily, my tools were only a couple 100 feet away 60 m across the alley, and I soon began work, deciding to finish it before the residents of the house arrived. The biggest problem was one of the fence posts, which was rotten at the bottom. A new post and some quick-setting cement solved the problem. Within an hour, I can attach the fence cross beams to the new 4x4 post 100x100. I turned around and saw that a girl of about 7 or 8 years old was watching me from the porch. Crap. I just decided to fix your fence before it falls. I hope you don't mind. She just shook her head. She stood and looked at me, and I felt out of place. I was a stranger. She shouldn't have talked to me. Maybe I should leave. I'll just clean up here and head home. I can finish later when your mom is home. I straightened my clothes a little and wiped my hands on my pants. I'm Alex Reed. I live across the alley, I explained, pointing up a few houses. She nodded. She reminded me very much of my own daughter, about the same age. Her hair was the same length, blonde, but not as blonde as Alora's. Alora, my perfect little Alora. I closed my eyes and saw her in a hospital bed, bruised and bandaged, fighting for her life. Her hair is hidden under bandages, and a few strands stick out, dark with sweat. Her body, so small on the white antiseptic bed. My Alora came in. It felt like someone had wrapped a ribbon around my chest and pulled it tight. I couldn't breathe. I turned away from Erica so she wouldn't see me losing my composure. She had already suffered enough. I felt tears welling up in my eyes and headed towards the gate. I needed to get out of there. I barely made it to the driveway. It was too much. Closing the gate behind me, I collapsed to the ground and sat down, putting my head between my knees and covering my head with my hands. It was Christmas, damn it, Christmas. My girls got to be with me, shaking their gifts and trying to guess what was in them. Instead, Alora and Brianna disappeared. Their lives ended before they saw the world, before they found their place, before they could fall in love. No gift shaking. No more stomach aches from overeating holiday sweets. No late-night parties to drive me crazy with worry. No driving lessons. No trying to find the right college. No first bringing the boy home. No test preparation. No spring break. No graduations. Nothing. Never again. I cried, and the little girl who had lost her father stood next to me in the roadway, her hand on my shoulder, while I made a fool of myself. Erica, you know your mom doesn't want you to go out if she's not home. You better go back to the house. Mr. Reed will be fine. He's just tired. Come on, go. Katie took my hand and did everything she could to get me to my feet. Come on, Alex, not here. Let's take you home. I knew she was right. I stood up, wiping my eyes with my sleeve. I'll be okay. Just give me a minute. Pulling myself together, I took a couple of deep breaths and straightened up. I'm fine. I just saw her too early. But I'm fine now. I need to clean this place up and put the fence together. Fine. I will help. It only took us a few minutes to clean up the mess and carry the bags of grass clippings out to the back curb. I took all the tools to my house and returned to finish the fence. I secured the new post with a couple of 2x4s 50x100 and attached 2 panels. With Katie's help, it was much easier. When we finished, we both stood back and looked around the yard. Much better. I'll go into the house and make Erica an afternoon snack. That's about all Sandy allows me to do. Why don't you come with me? I don't know if it's worth it. Sandy doesn't know me. She may not want me in her house when she's not there. Never mind. She'll be fine. Just come in for a minute. It takes only a few minutes. I followed her inside through the glass sliding door. Erica sat on the floor and watched TV. I didn't even look in that direction. I was afraid that if I saw the wrong TV show, it would bring back even more painful memories. "Where can I wash my hands?" I asked Katie. She pointed to the door. "There." I headed to the bathroom. "Don't use the toilet. It doesn't wash off anymore." I heard water running in the toilet. I washed my hands and dried them on my shirt. There were no towels in the bathroom. Then I took the lid off the tank and inspected everything inside. Nothing complicated. The chain connecting the stopper to the handle extension was missing. Lifting the rubber plug, I saw that it was under the lip, the reason for the water leakage. I reattached the chain and checked the flush. Worked fine. I fixed it. The chain just fell off. Katie nodded and went back to making her grilled cheese sandwich. Brianna loved grilled cheese, but the sandwich could not be cut and the crust had to be removed. I won't cut the crust off my sandwiches anymore. Taking a deep breath, I went to inspect the front door. "Katie, I'll go home and grab the sander and paint. This door is in desperate need of help. Let's. Sandy won't be home until late tonight, and if we're going to get in trouble over the yard and fence, we better get it triple." 15 minutes later, I was busy with the battery-powered hand sander, removing the worst bits of paint from the door. There wasn't much work. The door was already practically bare. I brought along 3 paint options, all of which I knew were approved by the Homeowners Association. "What color paint do you think I should use?" I asked Katie. "Let's ask Erica." She returned a few seconds later with Erica on her arm. "We're going to paint the front door, Erica. What color would you like?" We had a choice between white, light blue, and dark brown. She pointed to the light blue one and then sat down nearby to watch. "I've already removed the fittings. Having sealed the hinges and the lower kick plate door kick pad, I laid out a rag on the floor and began to apply a layer of paint from top to bottom. I looked at the girl who was watching me so intently. Next to her, I saw a Christmas tree, so small and bare, with one small package under it. Christmas trees aren't supposed to look like this. They should be large, full of all kinds of decorations, each of which has its own story. Special handmade jewelry with photos of your family members. Popsicle stick ornaments showing Elmer's glue. Flashing lights of different colors, candy canes and tinsel, and an angel on top. There should be gifts below, folded and scattered, so many that you can't even get close to the tree. This was the first year that I didn't have a Christmas tree. We used to go as a family to one of the Boy Scouts' Christmas trees and pick out the biggest, most flamboyant tree we thought would fit in my living room. Then we decorated it together. Christmas songs played in the background, and we sipped eggnog. We spent forever unraveling garlands, replacing light bulbs that weren't working, and replacing metal hangers on decorations that needed it. It was a whole day. Not this year, and never again. I realized that I had stopped drawing and stared at her. A long drop of paint from my brush flowed down the door. The little girl looked at me as if she understood. "Would you like to help me?" I asked. She looked around, as if asking if I was addressing her. "Yes, you." She nodded timidly in agreement. I reached into the paint bucket and pulled out a small brush. I pointed to the dial panels on the lower half of the door. "You can paint here, along the edge of the panel. This should be done with a detail brush like the one you have. Walk through the cracks." She nodded, dipped her brush, and began painting right along the edge of the panel, doing a good job. "It's perfect, like this." I went back to working on the top half and had to work around it, sometimes bending over to paint over it. She saw what I was doing, and I saw the little girl's mischievous heart for a moment as she began to back away from the door, causing me to lean further and further. "Hey," I said in mocking indignation, "you're doing this on purpose." When she giggled, clearly ignoring me, and continued her attempts to draw, I felt a small tug in my heart. It was nice to hear her giggle. "When you're done painting and you're done tormenting me, you can touch up the edges of the 2 hinges and the kick plate. If I don't bother you." Little Erica nodded and continued her careful tracing, working slowly and deliberately around the perimeter before moving on to the loops. I ended up kneeling next to her, painting the bottom half of the door while she worked on the trim. We switched positions so I could work on the side near the hinges while she finished the bottom trim. "Not bad," I commented. handing her a bucket to collect the remaining paint so she could dip her brush into it. I closed the paint can, peeled off the tape, and stood aside to look at the result. A little girl stood next to me, her blonde hair a stark reminder of everything I had lost. I took a deep breath to calm myself. Not bad at all. Do you think your mom will like it? I looked down at her as she thought it over. A smile slowly spread across her face. She nodded twice. I reached out to hit the fist like I did with my girls. She pulled away for a second, then looked at my face before clenching her fist and rapping her knuckles against mine. We enjoyed the last of the natural light as dusk fell. Katie came out and stood next to us, giving her approval. Blue color is perfect. Great choice, Erica. Erica stopped admiring her work, looked at Katie, and blinked as if she was seeing her for the first time. She looked around the block up and down, then returned to the house and sat down in front of the TV. "Are you ready to finish for today?" asked Katie. "Yes, it's better not to rush while you have the opportunity." Having collected my painting supplies, I quickly hid all traces of my presence in the house. Except, of course, for the door, the yard, and the fence. Well, and the toilet, although that didn't really matter. When I got home, I cleaned myself up and sat down, thinking about what I had just done. I had mixed feelings, and a slight feeling of guilt crept in for taking liberties in someone else's home. But thinking about the little girl and what she must be going through made me think that anything I could do to help was worthwhile. The thought was dangerous. I realized that I was not very polite to the people who tried to help me. Determined to remedy the situation if possible, I found a new telephone cable for my phone and connected it. I picked up the phone and heard a dial tone. Fine. I made a list of calls and got to work. I called my friends, neighbors, and colleagues one by one, apologizing for my behavior and thanking them for their concern. Every single one of them brushed aside my boorish behavior and promised that they would come to my aid if I needed anything. I stopped with only a few calls left and wondered where the people were for Sandy and Erica, who seemed to need help much more than I did. I picked up the phone and dialed Denise's family number. I knew the conversation would be difficult. I apologized for leaving the funeral arrangements in their hands and thanked them for all they did. Talking to Dan was difficult, but talking to Sharon nearly finished me off. I remembered the time we spent in the hospital looking after Alora, and I had to take a break to get my emotions under control while I listened to Sharon sob. Even after the divorce, we remained friends, and I was glad that we were close at that fateful hour. I promised that I would visit them in the next couple of days, but she insisted that there were some papers that needed to be sorted out. My last call was to Steve, my roommate for 3 years in college and best friend in the world. I hung up twice that first day, and it haunted me. He left over a dozen messages on my cell phone's voicemail. Besides, I had ulterior motives. The phone rang several times and ended up on voicemail. I felt like a weight had been lifted from me, and I wouldn't have to face him. "Steve, this is Alex. I'm sorry that I..." "Alex, I'm here. Don't hang up. I'm here. Let me turn off this damn machine." Wait. I heard some rustling, and the echo of our voices disappeared. "Oh my God, Alex. You're killing me. Sorry. It hurt me so much that I simply could not listen to another well-wisher." "I understand." He should have understood. His father passed away during our senior year of college, and he took it hard. I started drinking a lot, skipping classes, and chasing everyone who had breasts. I took care of him as best I could, collected his homework and projects, even talked to his teachers. He slowly pulled himself together, but eventually came to his senses. 5 years later, less than a year after graduating from law school, it happened to his mother. I flew in and spent a week with him. I knew it would be hard. He was an only child, and he had few relatives, not a single close person. He came out of this state bitter, and it cost him his girlfriend no big deal. We were close as brothers, perhaps even closer, and they still were. Stephen understood. I opened my soul to him and talked on the phone for ages. I heard him send his wife to bed, and I poured out my soul. It was a much-needed emotional boost that left me exhausted. What can I do? Anything, you know. Maybe I should fly. As much as I wanted to see him, almost a year had passed. He was a family man, and it was Christmas. No. Stay with your family. I'm feeling better now, and if I need to, I can call. Certainly. I also wanted to ask for forgiveness. Forgiveness. I'm sorry I couldn't do more for you when you lost your parents. I've never experienced a loss like this and couldn't understand what you were going through. Shut up. You were there for me, buddy. Always. When no one was around. I will never forget this. Enough said. Don't be upset about this. I couldn't help but giggle. Fine. By the way, there is one more thing you could do for me. Anything. That's what friends are for. That's what friends are for. The knock on my front door was not unexpected. 10 o'clock in the evening may have been a surprise, but the knock was not. As I approached the front door, I looked out through the glass next to it. There was a woman standing there. I had a pretty good idea who it was. I opened the door. Mrs. I. Morrison? She looked at me and nodded. Come in, please. Can I offer you a cup of tea or coffee? I turned and entered the house, leaving the door open. Walking into the kitchen, I poured myself a cup of coffee. Turning around, I saw that she was standing in the archway leading into the living room. She looked ready to explode, but I saw her take a deep breath and run her hands through her short hair. She looked young, too young to have gone through the hell she was going through right now. I don't want you anywhere near my house or my daughter, she finally blurted out. I understand, and I'm sorry for interfering. I walked past her and sat down in the living room. I can't explain it. I needed to do something to get out of this house, and when Katie told me about your situation, I guess I got carried away. She stared at me and crossed her arms. Don't mention her name. I can kill her. I smiled. Believe me, I understand this. She was in my house every day, 3 or 4 times a day, interfering in my life. Interfering, that's for sure, she snapped. She came and sat on the sofa opposite me. Listen, I appreciate your thoughts, and I'm sorry for your loss. She grinned. Ha, listen to me. I'm sorry for your loss. Shit. She leaned back. We are fine. I don't need your help. I don't know you from Adam, and I don't want you around my daughter when no one else is around. Jesus, you painted my damn front door blue. A little presumptuous, don't you think? I smiled. I would choose a wood tone. Blue is Erica's choice, one of 4 approved colors according to our Stalinist Homeowners Association. She leaned back, rolling her eyes. Don't remind me. If these bastards send me one more yard and fence maintenance notice, I'll rip their lungs out. She seemed to calm down for a second, perhaps realizing that these notifications would no longer be coming. I know. I should be grateful, but I don't need a stranger interfering in my life. Is it clear? You don't have to do everything for me anymore. I didn't do this for you. I did it for that little girl. You do not know me. I do not know you. Agree. I don't know what happened to you and your family or why. Not really. All I know is that this girl of yours doesn't deserve what she got. That's all I could think about. I just wanted to help in any way I could. She looked angry. I'm sorry you lost your daughters. It's a pity. But Erica is mine. My daughter. My responsibility, not yours. You're right. I'm not responsible for her. Right. I do not know you. We live 3 houses away, and in 2 years you have never exchanged a few words with us. For 6 months, we were on our own, and I definitely don't need you to come here now. I don't know you, I don't want to know you, and I'm not sure that I like you. Welcome to the club. A club? I'm not sure I like myself either. Forgive me, okay? Now I'm tired. You can go. She stood up and stomped towards the front door, abruptly closing it behind her. Everything went better than I expected. December 23. I got up early, cleaned myself up, even shaved. I had things to do. Katie showed up in my kitchen while I was preparing breakfast. At least none of us are in prison, were her first words. Not yet. You did a good job. Do not forget about it. I know. But still she was right. We should have asked permission. Hell no, she would never give it. Then maybe we should leave her alone. If a man was drowning and couldn't scream for help, Wouldn't you throw him a life preserver? A little too dramatic, don't you think? No. This is the third time she has drowned and is in complete denial. By the time she admits she needs help, it may already be too late. She looked me over. You look good. What are you going to do? I need to run a few errands, see a few people, go to work, and a few other things. Don't be late, she said, still in her caring mode. Do you need company? Thank you, I appreciate the offer. I can handle it. Okay, you have my number. Call me if you need anything. The office visit was excruciating. I went in, thanked management for their understanding, visited a few friends, and let them know I appreciated their concern. The way they looked at me only emphasized how lonely I was. I was glad to get out of there. I stopped at a flower shop and filled a trunk full of Christmas cacti. I toured everyone I could remember, expressing my gratitude and leaving behind beautiful plants. I told everyone the same banal phrase, comparing my prickliness in the last couple of weeks to the roots of a plant. I left a few plants on the doorstep with a note. By mid-afternoon, I felt like I had done my part. I stopped by Denise's parents' house, and Sharon greeted me at the door with a big hug, and then burst into tears. After wetting my shirt, she led me into the house. There's something you need to know, Alex. She spoke strangely, and I wondered what was the matter. Denise left a will. She left you the house and the lion's share of her insurance, so you could take care of the girls if anything happened to her. I was stunned. It was so unexpected. I don't know what to say. Sharon reached out and patted my arm. It's not what I expected, but if you think about it, it makes sense. What are you going to do? I'll probably sell the house. I definitely don't need two houses. She had mortgage insurance, it will be paid. You can rent it out, receive a stable income from it. It was too fast. I couldn't think straight. I need to think about this. I just didn't expect anything like this. I understand. She took my hand. How are you? Better. Not great, but at least I can get out of bed. We're here if you need us. You know this, right? Yes, thank you. Next to the girls, you were the best thing to come out of our marriage. We love you too. Do not forget about it. I'm sorry I was so helpful in organizing the funeral. I don't think I could have done it without you, I admitted. Do not even think about it. That's what family is for. That's what family is for. My day wasn't over yet. A few more calls and I started to act. Not sure if I should, but I couldn't resist. Around lunchtime, I decided to go into the next room. Katie's husband, John, answered the door. The hermit left the cave, glad to see you in the air. He shook my hand, letting me inside. Kat, Alex is here. Katie came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. How was your day? Not bad. A few surprises, but I survived. We're going to eat. Would you like to sit with us? Maybe. When do you think Sandy will come home? I think about 9. And what? I just want to talk to her if possible. Then do you have time for dinner? Certainly. By 8:30 p.m., I was enjoying a cigar with John as I sat in their driveway, trying to figure out what our football team's chances were of making the playoffs. We positioned ourselves strategically so that I could see the Morrisons' driveway. When Sandy arrived, I pulled away from John and jogged across the alley. Sandy, can I see you for a minute? She looked ready to shoo me away, but after a few awkward seconds, she crossed her arms, leaned back against the car, and raised her eyebrows. I'm sorry again that I entered your house without your permission. I know it was wrong. All I can say is that I wasn't thinking very well. She rolled her eyes. Anything else? Yes. I know you said you don't need my help, but I'd like you to talk to someone. I have a lawyer friend who is willing to look into your insurance situation for free. Like you and me, he has experienced several losses in his life, and he would like to help you if he can. If you just call him, he'll see what he can do. I saw that she wanted to say no, but she was thinking about it. She chewed on her lower lip, which I saw was cracked. She looked exhausted. I took out his business card and handed it to her. It will only take a couple of minutes. It won't hurt. She finally nodded and took the card from me. This is all? And the last thing. Tomorrow, I'm going to my ex-wife's house to clean out the refrigerator and get rid of her Christmas tree. Now, this is my responsibility. I was going to throw the tree away. This is one of those artificial light-up trees that I have never been able to stand. I thought if you don't mind, and she's not too much of a nuisance, I could bring her here and you could take her off my hands. Otherwise, it will go to the landfill. I quickly spat out those words before she could find fault with me. She seemed to accept that I could interfere, at least that way. She sighed and finally spoke. Fine. It would be nice. If that's all, then I'd like to go inside. My legs and back hurt, and I have to get up early tomorrow. This is all. If you want, you can call Steve tonight. He's a night owl and is waiting for your call. Good night. I quickly left before she had time to change her mind. I had hired Kathy for dinner the night before, assuming everything had gone well with Sandy, and by noon we were back at the Morrison house and knocking on the door. Erica let us in, and we dragged all our belongings with us. I folded the tree and left it on the doorstep, while we made room for it in the living room. After putting it in place, I brought out a large plastic box with Christmas decorations and suggested that Katie and Erica start getting the tree into a holiday appearance. My weekly cleaning crew showed up right on schedule, and I tasked them with thoroughly cleaning the entire house. I've been feeling guilty for the past few weeks, chasing them away, and I've been begging and cajoling them into doing this favor for me on Christmas Eve. The four-person team set to work like whirling dervishes, rushing through the rooms in pairs, leaving gleaming chrome and sweet smells in their wake. We only had a few hours, unless Katie was mistaken, and I had one more big task ahead of me. The carpet cleaning was a little late, but showed up shortly after the cleaners finished the living and dining rooms, and I moved most of the furniture into the hallway and kitchen. They got to work right away and finished the bottom floor in just over an hour. While they worked, I decorated the front yard and house with Christmas lights. I was hoping Sandy liked traditional multicolored garlands. I didn't really like all white and used my own garlands to decorate her house. By the time I finished, I was already sweating and nervous about the time. The carpet men left first, reminding me to let the carpets dry for another hour before putting the furniture back in place. They were soon followed by a cleaning crew who I rewarded handsomely by giving them an extra $100 for coming on Christmas Eve. I moved into the house, where the lights were already on, and saw that a Christmas wonderland was waiting for me. Katie and Erica did an amazing job using what I brought and also took the Morrisons' decorations out of the attic and used them too. It was difficult to tell that this was the same house. You ladies did an incredible job, I announced, standing in the doorway. Katie looked a little disheveled, but very pleased with herself. Let's finish quickly. I need to go home. John will kill me. I promised her that we would finish by 4, and it was already almost 5. She held an open house on Christmas Eve and invited half the neighbors that evening. She only had a couple of hours left to complete her preparations. I hugged her for all her efforts and escorted her away, while I began moving the furniture into place, working at a frantic pace to get everything done before the unsuspecting owner returned home. Erica followed along, arranging all the lamps, baskets, and trinkets, adding additional holiday decorations along the way. When the last of the furniture was put in place, I turned and smiled at her. This is our secret, isn't it? If your mom asks, the Christmas elves have stopped by to help you clean up. You did great, Erica. She smiled and extended her hands to me. I leaned over and hugged her. Thank you, she whispered before letting me go and disappearing down the stairs. I felt a lump in my throat. Whether it was the fear of being caught by her mother or the joy that she uttered her first words addressed to me, I could not say for sure. By 8 o'clock, Sandy still hadn't shown up on my doorstep with a shotgun. I guess she was going to wait until Christmas to whip me for minding my own business. But I didn't care. I felt good, the best I've felt in 2 weeks, thinking about this little girl having a real Christmas. Children should have Christmas. I cleaned myself up and decided, as promised, to stop by the neighbors when Steve called me. Hey, Steverino. Only my grandmother can say that, asshole. Merry fucking Christmas to you too, I teased. I heard him chuckle. Merry Christmas, that's right. At least for your neighbor. How is that? I asked, suddenly interested. The insurance bastards were just playing for time. They have nothing to rely on. The only change to the policy was made on their advice, following the annual review of the policy by their own agent. It only took a little legal pressure. It's not much, less than $300,000, but she'll get her check next week. Steve, you're a man. I take back all the nasty things I said about you. Shit, maybe it's true. If anyone knows, it's you. Jokes aside, you are saving my life. I knew he hated any hint of seriousness. I could almost hear him blush over the phone. Hey, that's what friends are for, right? Right, and I couldn't have expected anything better. The same, asshole. Shit, you should have gone and ruined everything. Listen, I have to run. Say hello to your family and Merry Christmas. I'll call you next week. You will do this, and Darla says hi to you. She made me say it, and you don't need any ideas. Understood. Kiss her for me. Do not forget about it. I will come after the holidays and kiss her myself. When are you going to leave town? Funny guy. Start anything with her, and I'll make you leave her and the credit card bills. Oh, you win. I had to laugh. Thanks again. Merry Christmas. Hang in there, buddy. And you. I showed up at the neighbors and stoically accepted the condolences, which definitely put me in a bad mood. Within half an hour, I realized that I had to leave there, even if it made Katie angry. John seemed to sense my mood and dragged me outside to enjoy my cigar in peace. With a heavily seasoned eggnog in hand and a more than decent Rocky Patel decade steaming beautifully, I was ready to hang in there a little longer as he headed back into the house. You know, I should skin you alive for this little trick. I heard a voice coming from the direction of the pool and headed there, towards the sound. Sandy sat alone, a large and almost empty glass of wine standing next to her. I know, I was bad, but I'm already done. What were you thinking? She snapped. I just wanted Erica to have a good Christmas, and I wanted to help you out a little in trying to sell your house. She laughed, and it wasn't a very pleasant sound. And you too? You've barely met me, and you're so fucking eager to run me out of the neighborhood. Her words surprised me. Not at all. I'm just trying to combat the injustice of the world a little. What are you even doing here alone? I can't stand the way they look at me. It's like suicide is contagious or something. They don't know what to say. They all avoid me or look at me like I'm a leper or something like that. People can be assholes. She smiled. I'll drink to that. I sat down next to her and silently drank my 80% strength eggnog. We watched as a small group came out and began talking while lighting their cancer sticks. I know you want what's best, Alex. But you can stop now, okay? She said softly. Then the last thing. Please, enough. Steve called. Everything is settled with insurance. You'll receive your check next week. She looked at me as if I had grown a third eye, completely stunned. Is it true? Is it true? She finished the wine, swallowed it, and leaned back in her chair. Crap. They've been dragging their feet on this for 6 fucking months, and then all of a sudden, like this, she snapped her fingers. They're ready to pay? Steve is great. She leaned forward and put her head in her hands. After a few seconds, I saw that her body was shaking. She cried silently. I'm sorry it took so long. If I had been a better neighbor, we could have sorted this out months ago. She sat up abruptly, and I saw streaks of tears on her face. No need. Do not apologize. Just don't, okay? Fine. I felt awkward sitting there while she wiped her eyes and turned away from me, looking at the backyard. I leaned over and took her empty glass. Can I pour you a drink? Yes, please. Thank you. Be right back. It took a few minutes to navigate the crowd around the bar and endure late guests expressing their regret at my loss. As if they know anything about the loss. Crap. I was happy to be back outside, away from the pitying eyes of suburban moms and their awkward, mumbling husbands. I sat down next to Sandy. God. Next time you can bring the drinks yourself, I said, handing her a glass of wine. She gave me a wry smile. You volunteered, remember? Don't remind me. That's what you get for being a good Samaritan. That's all for me. Believe me, I learned my lesson. She giggled. I somehow doubt it. My cigar had gone out, and it was a pity to waste it. I ventured out into the smoking area to light a cigarette, and immediately regretted it when I caught the sidelong glances they cast at each other and realized what they were thinking. I did not stay there any longer than I should have, hastening to return to my solitude and Sandy, the only kindred spirit this evening who could feel even a tenth of the loss that was consuming me. I wanted to do one more thing, but I didn't know how she would take it. I thought that perhaps after another glass of wine she would agree. Sandy, I don't know if I'll like this. Are you up to something again? No, maybe, but not really. I mean, can I show you something next door? She gave me a strange look that lasted quite a long time. Can I take some wine with me? Certainly. It will only take a minute. She stood up and walked out the gate. We walked around the fence and out into my driveway and backyard. As we crossed my patio, she said, "Just because I drank a little and because you did something good doesn't mean you'll succeed with me, I hope you know." Her words hit me like a bucket of cold water. I didn't even think about anything like that. I turned and looked at her. She didn't look bad, not at all. She looked good, and even if she was ridiculously thin, I could see that she was an attractive woman. It's funny that I didn't notice this at all. I froze, trying to think of what to answer. Oh my God, Alex, I'm just teasing you. It took me a few seconds to answer. That was the farthest thing from my thoughts. Certainly. Trust me, I understand. Her sardonic retort was more surprising than the initial tease. Without waiting for an answer, I entered the house and led her into the living room. What did you want to show me? I turned on the living room light and moved out of the way. Holy crap, I gestured to the pile of gifts. They were for my girls. I don't know what to do with them. Is this all for your girls? She asked, looking at me in surprise. Yes, I kind of overdid it. That's for sure. I wish Erica had them. She doesn't need to know they're from me. They can all be from Santa if you want. If you don't take them, I don't know what to do with them. This is too much, Alex. It's a nice gesture, really, but this is too much. Please, no strings attached. Do it for Erica. She was silent for a moment and then turned to me. Why? Why now? I don't know. Look, they're just lying there. Eventually, I'll give them to some charity or something. I have a lot of gifts, but there is no one to give them to. And you have a sweet girl who has just one gift under the tree and could use a little joy in her life. She walked around the room, fingering the gifts with her feet and not answering, taking a sip from her glass from time to time. Eventually, she came back and stood next to me. She stood silently for several seconds, apparently pondering her answer. It's not fair, she finally muttered. This was not what I expected. Not a damn thing. Life is as unfair as I can imagine, I answered honestly. Good people suffer for no apparent reason, and idiots seem to easily glide through life without a care in the world. Innocent little girls are having their lives senselessly ended. The lives of kind-hearted neighbors are ruined, as if it were some big cosmic joke. I heard my own voice getting louder and more disappointed. Life is a fucking kick in the ass, and every time you think something good might come out of it, some space comedian pulls the rug out from under you. What kind of God destroys a family for no reason? Answer me this. By the end of my tirade, I was almost screaming. I think I need to go home. She turned and started to walk away. I chased after her. Please, could you take at least a few? Please. It kills me to see them here. She stomped around a little, then stopped. Without turning around, she said, "Bring what you want around midnight." She then slipped out the back door. After she left, it took me a few minutes to come to my senses. I made a complete ass of myself. Well, okay. Everything is as usual. I decided to visit Katie again to at least wish her good night. My nosy neighbor caught me as soon as I walked through the door. John told me that you were somewhere nearby, but I couldn't find you anywhere. I met Sandy, and we kind of hid out in your backyard, heartbroken." She looked at me in confusion. I was a little surprised that she came. She didn't say a word about what we did this afternoon. "Lucky you." "I still have the scars," I teased. I then told her a little about our conversation, including the insurance situation and the gift deal. God bless. Maybe she can finally stop working 16 hours a day and be able to spend time with her daughter. It will be great. I was wondering what you were going to do with all these gifts. I was afraid that you would make a memorial out of them, leaving them there year after year until the dust was an inch thick. Her words stung a little. "I'm not that bad." "No, not bad. Although you made me a little worried. It's just hard to go through. I understand it. I think this is not a problem now." She smiled. "I think no. Erica is a happy girl. I don't know if that's true, but at least she'll have a good Christmas." "I'm glad you came today. Many of our friends were worried about you. Your appearance was a good Christmas present for them. I can't say that this worries me very much. I know it sounds cruel, but their feelings are not high on my list of priorities right now. This is fine. It's still nice that you came. I appreciate your invitation, and for being such an annoying neighbor as you have been for the last couple of weeks." She laughed. "This is the nicest thing anyone has said to me lately, and in the most unpleasant form." "I think you're feeling a little better." I sighed. "A little, although I doubt Christmas will ever be the same for me again." She moved closer and hugged me. "It will never be the same, but maybe someday everything will be fine." I hugged her back lightly. I doubted it. Returning home, I changed into a sweatshirt, a type of sweater without a hood, cut like a sweatshirt and made of thick knitwear, and a t-shirt, and tortured myself a little by watching The Drummer Boy, Brianna's favorite. Life was damn unfair. My girls are gone. It was Christmas, and I was alone. I will never, ever spend Christmas with Brianna and Alora again. Never. An hour later, I was standing at Sandy's back door with 3 huge trash bags full of gifts. It took me 2 trips. I knocked softly, and after a few moments, Sandy let me in. She got rid of her holiday clothes and answered the door in a regular robe. She looked tired. I guessed that she was waiting for me. "Erica?" I asked quietly. "He's sleeping," she confirmed, taking one of the bags from me. Quietly, we walked into her living room and began laying out the gifts. I took the tag off each one, and she put a new sticker on from Santa. She asked me what was in each of them, but I couldn't remember everything. However, I was able to tell her about most things. She must have had some kind of plan because she organized them according to my descriptions of their possible contents, dividing them into neat little piles. After about 15 minutes, I turned around and saw her shaking her head. "What? It's too much." My ex said the same thing every year. But the girls never complained. She gave me a wry smile. "At least one of us will have a pretty impressive Christmas. Isn't that how it should be?" I saw her nod and noticed her eyes sparkle again. I decided to leave everything as it is. Until that moment, I had not perceived Sandy as a woman. I treated her like a person who needed help. But after she dressed up for the party and commented on my patio, and the fact that she was wearing only a robe, I was almost ashamed to admit that I was looking at her. She was thin, with short dark brown hair, almost black. At the top, she was not very large, but when she moved on all fours, arranging gifts, I looked several times into the upper part of her robe and saw her very feminine breasts heaving. Her legs were as thin as the rest of her, but had decent calves. Some of her movements weren't exactly feminine, and I found myself peeking under the bottom of her robe, looking at her pale inner thighs or glancing at her round backside giving shape to the robe. Her face was cute. A small upturned nose, a narrow mouth with a curved upper lip, natural eyebrows, fuller than usual, above large brown eyes. These eyes were extremely expressive and, to some extent, mesmerizing. I stared at her too often, and eventually she caught me at it. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," I quickly answered. Trying to justify myself, I explained. "You just look happier than I've seen you before." The corner of her mouth turned up. I guess for once you see me when I'm not mad at you. We finished with the gifts. I carefully stood up and carefully walked around the beautifully wrapped gifts. I turned and held out my hand to Sandy as she tried to get around them without stepping on one. She almost made it, but at the last moment she tripped, knocked over a pile, and fell on me. I caught her and held her, pulling her along with me until the wall stopped my retreat. She looked up at me and my arms were still wrapped around her, pressing her closer than I intended. Her hair smelled like strawberries. I should be angry with you, she said, pressing herself close to me. I know. I pulled her to her feet, but she clung to me, pressing herself against me. We don't need anyone. There was anger in her voice again. I shrugged, which was hard to do while holding a frail woman in my arms. I do not have anyone. Her gaze softened. I'm sorry. It's not worth it. I'll be fine. Closing my eyes, I thought about my children again. I felt like I was on the verge of a breakdown again. Without warning, her lips were on mine, gently at first. Then I felt her fingers dig into my skin, and she began to kiss me fiercely, pressing her teeth firmly against my lips. I held her tightly to me and opened my mouth, responding to her ardor. It was like nothing I had ever experienced. She pressed herself against me, kissed me, hugged me, hit me, scratched me, and I stood hugging her and absorbed it all. I waited for her to calm down, and when she didn't, I reached down and picked her up by the ass, holding her tightly as her legs wrapped around me. She bit my lip hard, and I tasted blood, and her claws dug into my shoulders. I felt anger and disappointment in her, a desire to somehow fight off the injustice of all this. I echoed those feelings, accepting them, expanding them, and returning them in return. Yes, I was angry too. Furious. The taste of his own blood on his lips only added fuel to the fire. Like everything else, her taking out her anger on me when I was the only one in the world trying to help her was blatantly unfair. It hurt me too. I've lost so much more. A lot of things. I'm tired of being treated like dirt. Wrapping one arm around her from behind, I grabbed her hair with the other and pulled her back, making her sigh. I lowered my mouth to her slender neck and bit it, sucking her flesh. Both of her hands reached for my head, tangled in my hair, and pulled my face towards her. Her thighs slammed against me, and her bare feet stamped the tattoo on my back. Sandy pulled my head back by the hair, and I loosened my grip. She looked into my eyes, which were filled with pent-up emotions. "Damn you," she gasped. She leaned down and pressed her lips to mine again, still fierce and inexorable. I turned and pushed her against the wall, pinning her with my body. My hand dropped and slid into her robe, meeting only bare flesh. I grabbed her breasts and squeezed, making her moan into my mouth. Her hands weren't idle as she pulled the top of my sweatpants down, using her legs to push them down from behind. She slipped her hand between us and wrapped the other around my shoulders, and I felt her fingers wrap around my hard cock. It was hard to believe that I was reacting to her and her hysterics, but there was no doubt. I took the initiative and began to pull my sweatpants down, letting them slide down to my ankles, dragging my boxers with them. I was topless and exposed. Our lips never parted, and she greedily sucked my tongue while I roughly opened her robe. Like me, she was naked except for a pair of loose panties. She took my dick in her hand and guided it into her wet hole, pushing the gusset aside. I lowered her, penetrating her until I was completely inside her. She moaned. Releasing her hand, she grabbed my hair and pulled me back, moving her lips away. "You bastard," she gasped. "Bitch," I growled. I pulled my hips back and thrust into her hard, pushing her into the wall, eliciting another gasp. I felt anger rising inside me. I knew that I wasn't really angry at her, but at the fact that she had become an unwitting victim of my rage. I pushed my dick into her forcefully, starting my grinding. Pulling away, I did it again, even harder, trying to drive her straight into the wall. She gasped as if I had hit her. "That's it, fuck me," she whispered rudely. "Come on, fuck me, you freak, like everyone else." I grabbed her buttocks and pulled her away from the wall, lifting her off my dick and then letting her go, letting her weight fall on my aching dick. One by one, I slid my hands under her legs. Her hips rested on my forearms, and my hands grabbed her buttocks tenaciously. Pushing her panties from behind, I exposed the soft flesh of her ass and grabbed her buttocks tightly, digging my fingers into them. She laced her fingers behind my neck and leaned back, exposing her upper body to my gaze. Her small breasts with perfect little nipples became hard for me. I fucked her hard and fast until I had enough strength and rage. When my arms were tired, I went to the living room. She freed each hand so much that her robe fell off, leaving her almost naked. I lowered her, placing her butt on the armrest of the sofa. She let go of me and leaned back, pressing her back against the sofa. Her hips were now much higher than her body, and I pulled her tightly towards me so that her lower back was on the arm of the sofa. I pulled her panties down and tossed them aside, looking at her sexy naked body. Spreading her legs wide open, I slid my cock into her warm hole and rammed into her, fucking her tight hole as she moaned so damn sexy. Holding her legs in his hands and lifting them high and wide, she was effectively immobilized by her own weight resting on her shoulders. I moved my penis in and out of her, beating the beat, not hesitating to do whatever I wanted. She lay there looking up at me, her eyes burning. I didn't want to look into those accusatory eyes. Lifting her up, I roughly turned her over, and her smooth, soft ass rose up, resting on the arm of the sofa. He spread her legs and impaled her again, entering her deeply on the first stroke and making her moan. I held her hips tightly and released my sensations through my thighs, fucking her furiously with all my might. Looking between us, I was hypnotized by the sight of my thickness stretching and filling her. With each stroke, her flesh pressed against me, stretching outwards before giving way. Pulling away from her, I spread her buttocks with my hands and began to play with her pink slit, pushing the head of my penis into her and watching her hole stretch indecently wide to accommodate me. I slowed down the pace, stretching her poor ass cheeks hard and slowly pushing my cock into her. The incredible sensations overcame my irritation, and I simply enjoyed thrusting into her for a long time, making her feel every inch of my length, pushing far until I felt resistance deep inside her. I couldn't stand it anymore. Grabbing her hips, I leaned over her, pounding into her, filling her. I felt how her wet canal grabbed me, dragging me along to the edge of desire. Looking down, I saw her twist to look at me. Do it. I entered her with all my weight, unable to resist the desire any longer. Gasping, I came inside her, and the release was painful in its urgency, exploding deep inside her again and again. Her legs were shaking, and when I slowed down, she relaxed, leaning over the armrest like a rag doll, lifeless. She squealed as I lifted her up and turned her around to sit her on the armrest. I took my still hard cock and pushed it hard into her, pulling her towards me until only the edge of her ass was left resting on the sofa. I saw that there were tears in her eyes and wet streaks running down her cheeks. Wrapping my arms around her, I pressed her fragile body to me, squeezing her. Her hands slid over my torso, and she pressed her face to my chest. As I held her, I felt her body tremble. I felt terrible and sick of what I had done. I fucked her brutally, used her, taking out my frustration and unhappiness on the only person I knew who had already suffered enough on his own. Then I felt tears welling up in my own eyes. We hugged each other desperately, clinging to anything that could get us through this terrible time in our lives. My arms relaxed, as did the tension in my body. I caressed her back, feeling her ribs under the soft skin. Then he pressed his lips to her hair, kissing her tenderly. She responded to my kisses by pressing her lips to my chest and shoulders, rubbing her hands over the scratches she had given me earlier. I found myself thrusting in and out of her and was surprised to find that my cock remained hard and aching for more. I held her, fucking her slowly, and she sobbed, clinging to me. I massaged her back, stroked her hair, kissed her temples. "Forgive me," I whispered. "Don't," she sobbed. "Don't you dare apologize. Not now. Never." Pulling her head back, I lowered my lips to hers, kissing her tenderly. "I won't." "Fine." She looked up and touched my lip, pulling away her finger, which was red with my blood. "Oh my God, I am so sorry. I didn't want to do this. No apologies. Do you remember?" In response, she reached over and kissed me on the lips. When she pulled away, I saw a small red spot on her lips. I kissed her back, feeling her respond to me as she continued to move inside her. Her legs spread wider to receive me. I looked down to see where I was going. When I looked into her eyes again, they were glowing. "Take me to bed," she whispered. "Are you sure?" "No. Do it anyway." I stood up carefully, my dear sister unfortunately still impaled on my rod. She wrapped her legs tightly around me and grabbed me with both hands. Grabbing her cute little ass, I slowly walked up the stairs. With every step, I lifted her up and down, fucking her along the way. At the top of the steps, she giggled. "What? You're stronger than you look," she said, softening her words with careful kisses to her chest. "You are as light as a feather. I need to feed you." She smiled slyly. "Protein oral injection." I almost dropped her, and she giggled. "What? You, young lady, have a dirty mind." I saw a storm flash across her face, but she shook it off and smiled. "It's been a long time, Alex. I'm not very good at flirting and teasing." "Same thing, beauty. Be patient." She made a slight rocking motion with her hips, causing my dick to fully enter her vagina. She giggled. "Crap. I can't believe you can just hold me like that." I moved her up and down on my dick a few times, eliciting a quiet gasp from her. "I could hold you like this forever." I climbed the last step and carried her into the bedroom. And again, a flurry of emotions flashed across her face, ending with a smile. "But then how will you feed me?" I reached back and closed the door behind us. Mischievously pulling her along with me, I lifted her into the air, causing her to squeak. She really was as light as a rag doll. I doubted she weighed 100 pounds 45 kg. I held her in my arms like a child and rocked her to sleep. Very sexy baby. I grabbed her legs with one hand, her back with the other, and she turned in my arms, her lips closed around my nipple. I let go of her shoulders and then put my hand under her back, causing her to fall down. Not very far, as I caught her by the hips and she hung upside down. She gasped, kicked her legs, and her arms wrapped around my waist. I grabbed her, pulled her legs to my shoulders, and pressed her warm pink nature to my face. Her face was on my waist. She squeezed her legs tightly around my head, her thighs pressing hard against my ears. "You're crazy," she gasped. "Here you see. I can hold you and still feed you," I teased, and then licked her, pushing my tongue into her wet slit. She giggled, and I felt her warm lips wrap around the head of my cock. I grabbed her hips and lowered her a little, feeling my dick entering her mouth. I lifted her up and down several times, licking her on the way up and filling her mouth on the way down. Despite all my bravado, it was surprisingly difficult, and I could feel my hands shaking from the effort. I held her still, her mouth filled with my cock, and walked the few remaining steps to the bed. She became more active, sucking me and moving her head back and forth. The feeling was incredible. I almost didn't want to put it down, but I knew that if I didn't do this, there was a chance that I would drop her soon. With my last effort, I lifted her and, bending down, lowered her onto the mattress, turning her into a writhing ball of flesh. Without wasting any time, she sat up and pulled me onto the bed. I reached out to her, but she pulled away. "Lie down. Now it's my turn." I stretched out in the middle of the bed and watched as she crawled towards my waist, moved between my legs and looked down at me, and then lowered her mouth onto my throbbing shaft. She licked me, studied me, stroked me with her hands, kissed my penis with her warm, tender lips. Looking into my eyes, she lowered her lips to the purple helmet and took almost my entire length into her mouth. The sensations were so incredible that I moaned loudly. She pulled away and pressed her fingers to her lips. "SHHHH. We don't want to wake anyone up." I pretended to zip my lips and barely held back a moan when she took me into her mouth again. She sucked me as if she was performing some task. Her hands worked on me just below where her mouth was. I reached down and brushed her bangs to the side so I could watch her. This was enough incentive for her to pick up the pace as she pushed her face onto my hard cock, gasping when she pressed too hard. "Sandy," I began to warn her. She extended her palm towards me, sucking with complete dedication. I didn't say another word. I let her suck my juices and moaned softly as I finally achieved a much-needed release, erupting between her lips. She breathed heavily through her nose, holding me in her mouth, taking in everything I had to offer and swallowing eagerly. She sucked gently as I came, and I felt the tension pulsate as she swallowed again and again. Her eyes were closed, and she seemed focused on completing her mission. As my hardness began to weaken, she took my shaft in her hand and stroked it, her mouth gently sucking on it, gently fingering my shaft, her tongue massaging the tender head. I relaxed on the bed and enjoyed her attention, focusing on the amazing sensation below the belt. The thought of me needing to get hard for her and continue our play was combined with her devoted attention, and after a few minutes I finally responded, getting hard in her mouth. This seemed to be her cue, and she sat up and sucked me more vigorously, restoring the steel of my cock until it could stand on its own, full and ready. Sandy moved up my body, grabbed me around the waist, and pushed my trousers soldier back home. She impaled herself slowly, moving up and down my cock until I was fully inside her again. Then she rested against me all the way and stretched sweetly. It was beautiful, her slender body pointing upward, her arms reaching to the sky, her head thrown back, the curve of her ribcage accentuated by the hollow of her belly, her perfect small breasts standing boldly and eagerly, the pink tips showing off their small, firm caps. After a few moments in this position, she relaxed with a sigh, leaning back and leaning forward until her hands rested on my chest. "Thanks for the food," she said with a teasing smile. "You're amazing," I admitted. She smiled sadly. "It's nice to hear such words from someone. It's been a long, long time." I reached for her, and she slid onto my chest, and I hugged her. "What a pity. You're so beautiful." "You don't have to say this," she said into my shoulder. "But you are like that." I held her, thrusting my hips, fucking her slowly as I held her. "I am not like that. I know it. Everything is fine." I reached up and lifted her face so I could lean forward and kiss her. It was a long, gentle kiss, and then I just hugged her. I continued to move my hips gently, not wanting to lose contact with her, staying hard and filling her. "Just hold me a little, okay?" "As much as you allow me," I assured her and wrapped my arms around her, hugging her to me as if I would never let go. I felt her trembling, her arms hugging me tightly. Her back tensed and fell spasmodically, and I heard her crying, clinging to me. I didn't try to calm her down or console her. I just held her, peppering the top of her head with kisses, holding her tightly to me and pushing my dick into her over and over again. We spent several long minutes like this until she gradually relaxed and her death grip on me loosened. I loosened my grip, allowing my hands to explore her body freely, stroking it, caressing it, cupping her tight little ass with my hands and thrusting into her. She responded slowly, pushing away from my strokes, her tits pressing against my chest. Pulling her tightly to me, I propped myself up on one arm and rolled over, lifting her body off the bed and laying it underneath me. Once on top, I let go of her, lifted my torso in my arms, and entered her with long, slow thrusts. She looked so small and vulnerable underneath me. I leaned down and kissed her, and she grabbed my head and kissed me back hungrily. Finally, she let me go, and I continued fucking her, happy to be where I was. I looked down at her, wondering how I had not noticed how beautiful she was from the very beginning. "Stop staring. I can't help it. You're so beautiful. I want to remember everything connected with you." "Am I too skinny?" she asked. "Nothing that a few servings of food can't fix," I teased. I fucked her in silence for a while, and then lifted myself up to penetrate her more thoroughly, spreading her legs for better access. She lifted her legs back, keeping her ankles almost parallel to her head. I spread my legs and straightened them, lifting my hips high before plunging into her. She gasped, and I smiled as I came on top of her, fucking her fast and hard, her wide-open pussy screaming to be filled. For the first time that evening, I felt how deeply she responded to me, how she trembled. She pulled her legs free and wrapped them around her knees, pressing her shins to her beautiful face. I dropped to my knees, leaned over and pressed down on the back of her legs, fucking her as fast as I could, feeling the need to come building inside me. "Harder," she breathed, "harder." I slowed my pace a little and added more weight to my strokes, pulling her towards me to meet my onslaught. She panted continuously, her toes curled and her legs stretched out. I watched in delight as her head fell back and her eyes rolled back into her head as she came all over my cock, her whole body trembling and her breasts turning red. As she began to calm down, panting, I grabbed her hips and began fucking her as fast as I could, feeling my own need peak. Unable to hold back any longer, I buried myself deeper into her, thrusting my hips forward hard, filling her. Sandy screamed, letting go of her legs, which kicked and shook as she came along with me. I stretched out over her, and her legs slowly wrapped around me. Her big eyes looked at me with amazement, calming my pride. I kissed her tenderly. "You're amazing," I told her. She blushed. I've never been like this," she muttered. I was exhausted from head to toe, and my legs and arms were shaking from exertion. The front of my thighs ached from being hit against her, and my dick felt like it was being put through a wringer. I rolled off her and lay on my back, breathing heavily. She rolled over and pressed her upper body against me. I hugged her, holding her close. There was so much I wanted to say, but I didn't know how or where to start. Instead, I just kissed the top of her head while she hugged me. I reached up with my other hand and stroked her side before letting my palm fall to her breast, holding it gently as my fingers lazily played with her nipple. She moved closer, crossed her leg over mine, and lay half on top of me. It allowed my hand holding her to wander, to touch her, to feel her. I felt the wetness of her crotch press against my thigh, cold and wet. I closed my eyes, my hand reached across her back, my palm cupping the warm flesh of her ass. Her breathing was slow and steady, and her arm was draped across my chest. I pressed my lips to her hair one last time, leaned back, and embraced this sweet, sexy, restless woman with pleasure. I woke up with a start, confused. I was alone in a strange bed, with the blanket pulled up to my chin. Daylight streamed in through the window, and I sat up, confused. It took me a few seconds to remember the events of the previous evening, and I looked around for Sandy. I started to get out of bed and realized that I was naked. My clothes were still down there somewhere. I pulled the blanket up to my waist and looked around for something to cover myself with before noticing my clothes from last night folded on a chair nearby. I pulled on my panties and dove into the bathroom to take a much-needed leak. He splashed water on his face and borrowed her brush to run it through his disheveled hair. I then took a sip of mouthwash and tried to look at least somewhat human before heading back to the bedroom. I was pulling on my sweatpants when Sandy showed up with a cup of coffee. It smelled amazing. She smiled and handed it to me. She was wearing pajamas and had obviously showered and cleaned herself up. Her hair was still damp. "Hurry up. There's a little girl down there who's almost bursting with the desire to open her gifts." I took a sip of the coffee, hot and strong, then passed it back to her for a second while I pulled on my shirt. I straightened it out and picked up my coffee to take another sip. She watched me intently, with a slight sad smile on her face. I started to speak, but she interrupted me. "No, let's not talk about this now. We both needed it, but it didn't have to mean anything. It just happened. I don't regret it. Now we need to go down." Walking up to her, I took her chin. I could see she was nervous and wondered if she had been rehearsing that little speech. I leaned down and kissed her gently, continuing to kiss her until she responded. "I just want to say that you are amazing." "Is it true? You keep saying that?" she teased. "What will Erica think? I told her you had a sleepover." She can probably guess what that means. Kids these days are so precocious, but she doesn't seem to mind. "Shit, I feel like a jerk ruining her Christmas with you." She hit me, her small fist slamming hard into my chest, almost causing me to spill my coffee. "Shut up. It's because of you that she has a Christmas worth remembering." She turned and headed down the stairs, and I had to take my eyes off her cute little ass before I had a physical reaction that would be almost impossible to bear. I noticed that she moved unsteadily and wondered if she was in as much pain as I had been this morning. Maybe. maybe even more. We headed straight to the living room and sat on the couch, a foot apart from each other, while Erica waited for us, standing next to the gifts, almost shaking. She watched her mother with concern, glancing in my direction just long enough for her to smile quickly. When her mother nodded, she dove into the gifts, grabbing the closest one and tearing it open. She oohed and awed over each new gift, while the pile of unwrapped toys became smaller and the room gradually filled with more and more toys. She squealed and jumped up and down as she opened her iPod Touch and pulled out a $50 iTunes gift certificate. She had been pretty quiet up to this point, but then she ran up to her mother and hugged her tightly. "He knew, Mom, he knew," she screamed with joy, stopping to open her gifts to open the box containing the iPod and pull it out, examining it carefully and holding it reverently in her hands. I felt a warm hand rest on my arm and squeeze it gently. I twisted my wrist and took her hand in mine, intertwining our fingers. I looked at Sandy and saw tears in her eyes. With a sob, she carefully brushed them away. As usual, the new clothes were dealt with quickly, tossed into the growing pile, but she examined each item, holding it close to her body, asking her mother's opinion on some of them before moving on. I listened to Sandy laugh at her daughter's antics and thought it was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. Erica is almost done with the gifts. I saw her reach for a large box and squeezed her mother's hand. "Maybe it's better if this gift is the last," I whispered. "Erica, dear, this is from Mr. Reed. Why don't you open it last?" Erica looked up, and her surprise was the same as mine. She pushed the box aside and continued to sort through the pile of wrapped gifts. A small wallet containing 5 $10 bills was another top seller, as were roller skates, each of which required another scream and a trip to my mother's lap, causing more giggles and laughter from the woman next to me. Sandy smiled widely as she took the wrapping paper from her daughter and filled the trash bag with it as she received it. I was torn apart. All the gifts I had so carefully chosen for my girls were disappearing. I couldn't help but think about how I would have spent my Christmas if fate hadn't given me such a kick in the teeth. A couple of times I felt tears welling up in my eyes, and I lost my breath. Sandy moved closer, pressing her leg against me, holding my hand tightly in both of her laps. Then I saw the joy on young Erica's face and wiped away my tears, taking a deep breath, knowing that this is what my daughters would have wanted. Their hearts were as big as the world. I felt Sandy's head lean against my shoulder, and I squeezed her hand again. Finally, the gifts are over. There are 2 gifts left. The one that was there that first day, the one that seemed so far away, but was actually just 3 days ago, and the biggest one. She looked at us, then began to tear the paper off her mother's gift. Inside was a book-sized jewelry box, and she opened it with a squeal. "Grandma's necklace?" she asked. "You always liked it," Sandy said. Erica walked over and sat between her mother's legs, brushing her hair to the side so her mother could secure the chain around her neck. Now I could see that it was an old-fashioned locket, and Erica clung to it as if she would never let go. Sandy finally snapped the chain into place and gave it a little push. Erica jumped up and ran to the mirror, looking at herself. She came and stood in front of us, striking several poses. It was so damn cute, I couldn't stop laughing. This caught Sandy's attention, and she giggled too, snuggling up to me and putting her arm around my shoulders. We watched as Erica walked up to the last large box, looking back at us as if waiting for permission. "Come on," I teased. "You can't stop now." She grabbed the edge of the wrapping paper and tore it. She tore off large pieces of paper and threw them towards her mother, and then suddenly stopped dead in her tracks. She screamed, jumped up, and danced on the spot. I've never seen anyone so excited. She leaned down and roughly tore the paper away, revealing the PS3 box and stacks of games taped to the top. "Mother, Mother, this is the PlayStation 3, she exclaimed as she bent down and picked up the box, twirling it in her hands before tripping and dropping it to the floor. Sandy laughed. "Carefully. You don't want to break it before you have a chance to use it." Erica climbed over the coffee table between us and climbed onto my lap. She hugged me tightly and squeezed me so hard that I thought she might break something. I felt her breath on my ear. "Thank you, Santa." I felt her soft lips press against my cheek, causing tears to well up in my eyes. I held her close to me. "I hope you like your gift." I felt tears welling up in my eyes, threatening to overflow, and I clung to her for a few seconds. "Come on, open it." She jumped up and began tearing open the box, taking out the games, instantly putting them into piles. She looked so much like her mother. I felt Sandy shift on the couch next to me and turned to her just as her arms wrapped around me. She kissed me on the cheek. "Thank you." I hugged her. "I should be thanking you. I never thought I'd be able to enjoy Christmas again." She smiled. "It would be terrible," she said quietly, "if Santa couldn't enjoy Christmas." I thought we were finally done, but Erica went behind the tree and came back with 2 gifts wrapped in newspaper comics. She gave one gift to her mother and the other to me. Sandy and I looked at each other, then she opened her gift. Inside was a handmade ornament that depicted their little family, Sandy, Erica, and their departed father, smiling as if everything was perfect in the world. The picture was framed using popsicle sticks and had pipe cleaners glued to it. It was so sweet I can't put it into words. "If we hang it on the tree, then Dad can share Christmas with us from heaven," Erica explained. I saw Sandy choke and then hug her daughter tightly. "This is wonderful." "Hang it, Mom," Erica insisted. Sandy stood up and hung it in the middle of the tree, carefully turning it so it faced the room. "I like it, Erica, thank you." Erica stood in front of me, shifting from foot to foot. "Your turn," she announced. I carefully unfolded the paper and saw a drawing, hand-drawn with colored pencils on light cardboard. It took me a second to realize what it was. "We are painting the door, aren't we?" "Yes, and this is a mother who is trying to look angry." She pointed to the figure on the side. It must have taken her a while. The picture was quite large, over a foot tall, and she carefully drew the door in great detail, coloring it blue and decorating it with little Christmas decorations. There she was on her knees, painting the bottom, and I, bent at the waist, was painting the door right above her head. I pointed to the figure to the side. "If she is angry, why is she smiling?" Erica laughed. "She's just trying to be angry. She's really happy. You just can't show it to her. She has to pretend to be sad because Dad is gone." I picked up the photo and then ostentatiously hugged her. "This is my favorite Christmas present. I'm going to frame it and put it on my desk." Erica climbed onto the couch and hugged me. "Will you connect my PS3? "Of course, I'll connect," I said, hugging her back. "I'll make breakfast," Sandy announced. I looked up and saw her wiping tears from her face again. What a storm of emotions. It only took a few minutes, and we connected the gaming system while Erica debated which game to start with. She barely had time to load it when we were called for breakfast. Erica pouted. "This is not going anywhere. You can play after breakfast." It was surreal sitting at the table with eggs, toast, and sausages on a plate and a glass of orange juice at the ready. Erica had a bowl of cereal and a tall glass of milk, just like in an ordinary family. I was still amazed at how talkative Erica became when she told us about her gifts. "Can Taylor come over and play with us later?" she asked. "We'll see," Sandy told her. "It's Christmas and her parents might want her to stay home today." "What are your favorite gifts?" I asked. She seemed lost in thought, and I saw her hand reach for the locket hanging around her neck. It was funny to watch her face scrunch up when she really thought about it. "I think it was your sleepover," she finally announced, catching me off guard and nearly causing me to spill my orange juice all over the table. Sandy was no less surprised. "Is it true? Better than PS3?" she asked. Erica nodded vigorously. She looked at me. "Mom is happy." I looked at Sandy and saw that she was blushing deeply. I reached out my hand and ruffled Erica's hair. "I'm happy too. Happier than I thought I could be." Erica nodded solemnly. "I know. Your girls have gone to heaven too. These were their gifts, right?" I nodded. "I knew they would want you to have them." She ate a spoonful of her cereal. "Alora was nice. During class, we made a poster for her. I drew an angel. It was hard to hear her name. Suddenly, everything seemed wrong. I got to sit at the table with her and Brianna, listen to them chat, watching them fight over playing with each other's gifts. Now I have no chance of this. The room blurred, tears for my lost girls filled my eyes. "Don't be sad," Erica said, touching my hand. "They are in heaven now and can watch us. They wouldn't want you to be sad." I forced myself to smile. Surely the poster was beautiful. I wish I could see him. "Mrs. Orris, Viola will probably let me take it home for you," she said. I wish I could. Erica ate her cereal as quickly as she could and pushed her empty plate away. "Can I play now?" Sandy gave her the go-ahead, and she headed straight to the TV. Sandy and I looked at each other. "She's become quite talkative," I noted. "Thank God," Sandy said, standing up and collecting the plates. "Let's hope everything works out." I gathered my things and joined her at the sink. "I must go home." "I understand," she said quietly. "I need to visit my wife's relatives." I promised. "But I'd like to come by later if you don't mind. Maybe we could have dinner together." She seemed a little distant. "You do not have to. You've already done enough." I hugged her and felt her tense. Don't tell Erica, but her drawing was my second favorite Christmas present. I felt her relax a little, and she turned to me, allowing me to give her a good hug. I leaned over and kissed her tenderly. She giggled. "Oh, really? Is it true? The overnight stay was my favorite. This gift should hold you over for a while. One more night, and I'm unlikely to be able to walk again. You are a monster." Her smile softened all the bitterness of these words. No kidding. I would have to learn to speak with one lip. Her eyes opened wide, and she brought her hand to her mouth. "Forgive me," she whispered. I kissed her again. "No apologies, remember." She smiled. "Fine. It would have been nice to have dinner, but I didn't have anything special planned. Let me take care of dinner." She smiled lewdly. "Right, you promised to feed me." This made me blush. "Actually, if you're not in a big hurry, maybe feed me one more time before you go." I looked at Erica. "She'll be fine. You won't be able to tear her away from these games for several hours." She took my hand and led me to the stairs. Half an hour later, I fed her, but not before I had proven to both of us that we were perfect for each other. It was quiet and gentle, and just what I needed to let me know that the previous night had not been a one-time fluke. A year has passed since that first Christmas. Things weren't always easy between us. We still had sharp edges and wounds that didn't heal quickly, but we didn't give up. Any talk about keeping Erica in school quickly ended. She's a straight-A student, smart as a whip, and even talks about how she's going to play volleyball. That Christmas, her spell of silence broke. Within 6 months, I moved in with Sandy and Erica, and we became landlords, renting out my 2 homes and using our newfound wealth to buy out several foreclosed homes, renovate them, and rent them out. Sandy quit her job and was enjoying her new career as a real estate tycoon. Even renting sometimes became a headache. By September, we were talking about getting married and decided to skip the big ceremony and fly to Vegas for a mini vacation and a quickie wedding. We even convinced Katie and John to join us for a couple of days. Katie was our matron of honor. Steve and Darla also surprised us with their appearance. He insisted that if I was going to volunteer to wear the noose again, he would be my best man. He's always been like this. Now we are packing gifts for Erica. I think overdoing it at Christmas is a habit I'll never break. Every now and then, I can't help but pat Sandy's belly. Erica is thrilled to have a baby brother by summer. And I'm excited about our new Christmas tradition. I can repeat our first Christmas sleepover. Sandy even wore this stupid, ratty old robe. She promised never to get rid of him. Christmas will always be bittersweet for me, and sometimes I still feel sad and need a little time alone to think about those little girls whose lives were so unjustly cut short. I miss them terribly and think about them every day. Christmas will never be the same again, but I'm not complaining. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.